Hi folks, you're with Taskless Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. Let all your trucker and driver buddies know so they can listen to this as they're driving along. In this essay, I'd like to talk about judge recusal. That's judges standing down from a case where they're unable or unwilling to be impartial in their hearing of the evidence and their application of the evidence and their interpretation of the law. Now, there have been a number of high-profile cases in the United States recently where the activist judicial class has attempted to block and prevent the policies of the implementation of the policies of the Trump administration. Now, they're blatantly and brazenly anti-Trump, and so they're not even attempting to hide this, but they're activists holding judicial positions, and they have substantial power. Now, if you look at some of the Senate confirmation hearings where the Democrats had a majority to vote these judges into office, you look at some of these and they're beyond pathetic. I mean, you wouldn't have these people as a junior law clerk, out in the sticks somewhere, out in the middle of nowhere, and yet here they are sitting as federal judges with a lifetime appointment. It's insane. I mean, these people are low IQ. They're just rabid activists. They come from a rabid activist background. They're delusional. They're preconditioned to believe that they're the resistance fighting back against Hitler. And they've got no concept of the law or evidence or anything like that. And what they may have learned about the law, it must have been by some, through the post, through some sort of correspondence or something like that. And it just all got lost in the post. I don't know. You got to wonder, did these people ever attend law courses or colleges? I mean, did they ever do it? And how demanding or exact? Now, given how many minorities are involved, you have to assume that they're all running around with affirmative action degrees. But straight white men are still required to pass exams, but other groups are given a free pass, and therefore the quality of their education and the rigor of their education is understandably much lower. Nonetheless, let's deal with the issue here, which is, what do you do about an activist judge? They're activists, they know they're activists, the other side knows they're activists. Should they be hearing a case, a legal case, in which they have some sort of emotional or other vested interest, or maybe the people that are bringing the case are former colleagues or whatever, but where they're part of the judge either is or was or still continues to be part of an activist network with strident views on this or that, and they're being required to have judgments. Now, on a case in which those views are going to be tested and be part of the process. Now, bear in mind that judge shopping is a thing in the United States, and it has become so, by the way, in Australia and the rest of the Western world now. It's a bad practice that the Americans have exported around the world, through the NGO networks and USAID involvement and so on. The architecture of judge shopping and so on is alive and well all over the Western world now. For example, people that are arrested for climate protests, for example, in Australia, it is incredible just how often they manage to get very sympathetic judges who are very much on board with have marched and placard waved on the street about climate and protesting climate and this sort of thing. And they're able to get a judge that hears the case that lets them off. Yeah, no charges for you. You're okay. We might record a conviction. Now that's astonishing. But it's not just one off, maybe here or maybe there, or just accidents. Time and time again, activists are able to get to hear, these activist judges are able to hear these cases and let them off. Now, we can see the same in the United States. So, radicalized prosecutors, and that's another matter. I'll come back to that in a minute. Radicalized prosecutors or regional attorneys general, that sort of thing, they're able to let's bring a case here. The case really has no merit, but we can get to an activist judge who will, and we can organise through the back channels here, who will hear this case and give us the verdict we want. Now, we're operating at multi-levels. I've mentioned this in other videos, but but it needs to be understood we're operating at multi-levels here. The activist network that judge came from, that's why they were given the judgeship, because they're an activist, not because they're a jurist. So the activist network they came from, they're maintaining their contacts with the activist network, the judges' assistants, the clerks, the secretarial and administrative staff around the judge and in the courthouse generally. They too will be from that activist network. And so the judge is able to stay in contact and in connection with the activist network, and they're able to get pre-arranged hearings for their buddies and for their activist buddies, and they're able to get pre-briefing on, well, this is the verdict we want you to make. We'll write it up for you. So this is your reasons for judgment and this sort of thing. So it's very much a closed loop shop of ideology and predetermination. Now, this shouldn't be that hard to cut through. It's pretty easy to realize, hold on a minute, that judge came from the NGO, for the glory of angry lesbians NGO, and the employees or the secretarial staff and judges' assistants, they're also from that network. Okay, let's have a look at the mobile phone traffic between all these people, and let's have a look at the documents that are being exchanged and so on. And you'd find pretty quickly, without too much trouble, that there's a prearranged legal outcomes and predetermined legal outcomes through the wider activist network. After all, what's the point of going to an activist judge if you can't get an activist judgment? So a lot of this, again, is prearranged and predetermined. Now, the issue here then is, okay, well, you're an activist judge. Let's get your thesis from university. All white men are evil, fascist, Nazi, Hitler bastards. Okay, well, look, Judge, seriously, if that's the sort of stuff you're going to come out with your thesis, we've got some concerns over your impartiality in hearing this case. Or here you are with an NGO placard waving, and the NGO's website says all straight white males are fucking Hitler thrice. Judge, we've got some real problems here with your impartiality. We'd like you to stand down, to recuse yourself, to stand down from hearing this case. Now, an activist judge won't do that. Well, no, I'm here as an activist. I'm here to fight back against the Nazis. I am the resistance. And so they're not going to stand down. So they had to be forced to stand down. And this is where the recusal laws come in. Now, it's going to be a fine balancing act, because you don't want to undermine the authority of the judiciary. I mean, it's already undermined by stacking it with activists, but you don't want to undermine its practice. Nor do you want to hand over a situation where whoever's in power gets the right to neutralize or nobble any judge they want. That's no good either. So there has to be a law that says, okay, look, we can prove, on balance of probability, you're an activist in this area. Now, if they're an activist in gender relations, but they're hearing a case about potholes in the road, then that's nothing to do with gender. So they probably could be impartial, or potentially at least. But it's an area where they have activist involvement and activist credentials and activist past. They shouldn't be able to hear a case that involves, directly or indirectly, that activism, or that is a case being brought by activists who are or were associated with the groups that the judge was. These two areas are the big ones of concern. Now, also, we can go into, to what extent the staff around the judge, the court administration officials are activists, because most of them are now as well. Very few of them are just independent, impartial people. They're activists. And they're able to make sure that the judge that the activist people want, so what we want, Judge Billie Jean here, she's a good angry lesbian that hates all straight white. We want her to hear this case. Not a problem. I'll fix it. I'll just reschedule the cases she hears. I'll just adjourn this. This is the administration people in the court. We'll just adjourn another case she's hearing, or we'll declare this an emergency case so the judge can then drop that and hear this. And so there's a lot of background administration that goes into making sure the judge you want gets to hear the activist case you're bringing. Now, the case you're bringing, in the case, say, someone like Letitia James from New York. The case you're bringing may have zero merit. I mean, as an activist, you probably think it does. The delusional, insane activist goes, well, everything has merit. It's against straight white men, so it must be merit. So the case they bring may have no merit, but that's irrelevant. If you can get an activist judge to hear it, it creates a level of artificial and delusional, but it creates a level of relevance that really doesn't exist in any real world situation. So the judge has to be able to stand down. So say the Trump team in this case, and I'll use as an example, given that it's all over the media. The Trump team should be able to say, well, look, you're an activist. We don't want you to hear this case. The judge refuses. Don't care of an activist. I'm going to teach you Nazis a goddamn lesson, because that type of attitude, which is what you certainly see among the judges, the activist judges. Then if the judge tries to make a determination, that determination can be set aside until the issue of the activism is heard. Now, if the case can be proved that on balance the judge is an activist, and maybe the judge has to be brought in front of a panel and questioned. When I say a panel, I'm talking like an appeals court or something like that. And then if the appeals court can say, well, look, you probably are an activist, so what's the problem with you standing down? Why do you need to hear this case? Why are you so emotionally wedded to this case? The mere fact you're so emotionally wedded to it would in itself suggest or imply, if not prove, that you're an activist. So why not stand aside? There's plenty of other cases for you to hear. Why are you hanging desperately, clinging to this one? And then move the judge on, and then find a judge that is impartial, and then that judge can hear the case. Now, if the activist judge does bring a judgment down, such as a stay, for example, then that stay can only last for a certain amount of time, and that the appeal on the judge's activism must happen within 48 hours or some agreed time limit. But this would have the effect of neutralizing the use of activist judges for political subversion and other associated reasons. Now, coming now to the issue of people wanting to be involved in the law generally, and seeing the law as a way of getting back at people that they would perceive oppressed them. So it was looking at one of the trust and safety team people being interviewed. I think it was from Twitter, and it was this very slightly built Jewish gay guy, and very gay, very queenie gay, and he's there talking about how they apply trust and safety, and constantly his language was, well, we have to stop the right, the Nazis, they're everywhere, they're trying to get us, we have to stop them. We are the resistance. And he wanted a job where he could get back at what he imagined his oppressors. Now, I would suggest the guy's face was permanently contorted in a mask of fear, as if he was about to be clobbered. Now, I'm sure, looking at him, how weedy and very gay he is, that he was I would suggest bullied a lot when he was a kid, and, and even later, I would think, looking at him, and the scars and memories of that haven't been forgotten, and so he's nursed these hurts and always dreamed and imagined that he would be in a position where he could get back at those people for what they did to him. And was it just the people that bullied him? No, it was all straight white males. It was all those Christian fucking Gentiles. And I'm going to fucking get back at them. They're going to feel my wrath. As hey, stop. Now, people with that attitude and that view have flocked to the law, and because of this guy actually wasn't stupid, so he intellectually he probably could have made it into the law in his case, but for the most part it's activists are come piling into the angry low IQ activists are piling into the law, and they're getting jobs as attorneys general, as prosecutors. So you have prosecuting departments of prosecutors absolutely stacked to the rafters with delusional feminist angry women, lesbians and stuff, who believe that all men are rapists and women are being raped by the gazillion every nanosecond, but they also want to get back at straight white male patriarchy. So they're prepared to just look the other way when it comes to women being raped by brown and black guys. But when it comes to straight white Christian males, we want them. We want those fucking scalps. And they're filled with so much hatred and and so much delusion. Now, if someone sat in front of me and said, this is to be a prosecutor or a lawyer or a judge or something, I hate straight white males. I want to kill all straight white males are Hitler Nazis. I wouldn't let them anywhere near. They wouldn't last 1 second inside the building. They'd be out, and the chance of them getting a job would be not just zero, but less than zero. But instead, it's these people actually getting hired into these jobs. They're being knowingly and willfully hired into jobs such as attorneys, prosecutors, and so on. And they're absolutely hostage to these fantasy type delusions about the world and how it is. Nazis are everywhere, but we're fighting them. And so they're not trying to do the law. They're not trying to apply the law or the evidence or the rules. They're trying to apply rabid activism. And this is where we're at today, which is why judge recusal laws and similar are required. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.